Namaste. Thank you for joining me for another video. Today I'm going to be going over very briefly sort of a Buddhism 101 on some of the very basic things that Buddhists believe in and follow, and sort of a very quick overview of the very basics of Buddhism. And ultimately this is the core if you really look into these things further, and I'll be talking about all of these things in more detail in videos to come in the future. So the first thing that I would like to discuss is the Four Noble Truths, and I'll just quickly go over these very briefly. The Four Noble Truths. This is pretty much the first thing that, if you're new to Buddhism, that you should study and read up on, or if it's not the very first thing that you hear about Buddhism, or even the first thing that you're taught about Buddhism, this is something that's very essential to know. Just always go back to the Four Noble Truths. So the Four Noble Truths are suffering, the second one is the cause of suffering, the third one is the cessation of suffering, and the fourth one is the path that leads to the cessation of suffering. So, the first one, suffering. Basically saying that there's suffering in the world. If you really think about it, there's a lot more suffering and grief, lamentation, pain, sorrow, despair, and all kinds of depressing thoughts, depressed people, wars, famine, relationships that have ended, and a lot of things, killing, people stealing from each other, etc., etc. A lot of unwholesome deeds, a lot of suffering in the world, starvation, all kinds of things. There's a lot more suffering than there is happiness and joy and tranquility and peace and harmony. It's a very sad thing, and even talking about it kind of makes me feel a little sad when I think about it, but it's part of reality, it's part of this world. And when the Buddha realized these things, that's one of the reasons, out of compassion, it's one of the reasons that he wanted to find an ending of this suffering and to figure out a way out of it. And ultimately he taught many teachings to thousands and thousands of people, and in today's world millions and millions of people are Buddhists now, following these ancient teachings. Now, the second noble truth is the cause of suffering. In short, the Buddha said that some of the things that cause suffering is birth, aging, death, old age, sickness, being separate from those that you love, being close to those that you don't really like or you despise, not getting what you want causes suffering, getting what you do not want causes suffering. And he also said that the five aggregates cause suffering as well. And in short, the five aggregates are form, feeling, recognition, karmic formations, and consciousness. So pretty much body and mind. And those would basically be the five aggregates, or the five skandhas. They're known as skandhas, S-K-A-N-D-H-A-S. I won't get too much into those. Again, I'll make more details about these later. Going back to the Four Noble Truths. So, also the cause of the suffering, part of the second noble truth as well, is there's this list that he gave, but also the reason that these things do cause suffering is because of our attachments, is because of our clinging to things, clinging to self, clinging to having a lot of attachment to people, having a lot of attachments to material possessions, relationships, and also our views. We have a wrong view, such as a view of, I am this, there is a self here. That would basically be wrong view. So our views, all kinds of different views, such as the world is permanent, I am permanent, or the world is real, or the world is not real, or lots of different things. And the Buddha talked about these things, and obviously you could look these things up in terms of wrong view and right view. So, and really, in very short, the reason that that causes suffering is because when we attach to things, all things actually are impermanent. So the more attachment that we have to things and to people, when things go wrong, when material possessions break and all that kind of stuff, or get stolen or whatever, the more attachment we have, the more suffering we have, and the more attachment that we have to human beings, to people, to relationships, family, and all of that, the more attachment we have when they die, or when they break up with us, or when something happens, we suffer a lot more when they're no longer in our lives. So, and so the four, so that's sort of just an overview of the cause of the suffering. The third noble truth is the cessation of suffering, and basically the Buddha's just simply saying, guess what, there's a way out of all of the suffering. You can have peace, you can have tranquility, you can reach enlightenment. There is a way out of this. And out of what? What is this suffering overall? This is something that is called samsara. Samsara is sort of like a wheel of existence, different existences that we fall into when we die, and we get reborn again into the lower realms, which are which are hell, animal, or ghost realms. These are kind of the woeful planes of existence, and then the higher planes of existence would be human and the heaven realms. And there's different realms in heaven according to different traditions, higher planes of existence and blissful existence and all of that. And of course the very highest thing that you could attain is enlightenment, total liberation, total awakening. You reach Nibbana. Nibbana is in Pali, or what most people know as Nirvana, which is the Sanskrit version, Nirvana with an R. So the last noble truth is the Eightfold Path, which is the cessation the cessation of suffering, which is the Noble Eightfold Path. And very briefly, I won't get into much detail into these things, but the Eightfold Path is right view. That's incredibly essential. Having right view is the very first thing that you should know about the Eightfold Path. You have right view, it's sort of like you're taking off dark sunglasses. You know, if you have really dark sunglasses like I do, I'm looking at things right now and everything looks a lot darker than they really are, because my view is a little clouded. Obviously sunglasses are just used to block out the sun so you can see, especially when you're driving. But when you're looking around at things, you don't really see too clear. Everything is shades darker, and the darker your sunglasses are, the darker things are. You could also think about it as kind of like having a blindfold on, and you don't really see things as they really are. So, you know, when you get to the top of a mountain, as an example, and you look down at the landscape, you go, wow, I can see everything clearly. And when you're down there, before you get up to the mountain, the only thing you could really see is whatever is directly in front of you, and sometimes you might not realize that just a few more feet away there's a river, there's a rock over here, or there's a little cave, and you get to the top of the mountain and you look down and you actually see all of these things very clearly. You don't need to look too hard. You see the whole landscape from the top. So that's kind of having a view, a better view. So anyway, right view, right intention is the next one. Number 3 is right speech. Number 4 is right action. Number 5 is right livelihood. Number 6 is right effort. Number 7 is right mindfulness. And number 8 is right concentration. So this is the Eightfold Path, and if you follow these things and you practice them, it's very possible you could reach enlightenment. So the next thing that I just want to kind of quickly go over, and I won't get into any of this at all, this is called the 12 links of dependent origination. And essentially this is sort of a link. It's sort of like if you think of a chain, one link connected to the next, connected to the next, and the next. And this also goes along the reasons of our existence, and the reasons that we have so much pain, and the reason that we have so much sorrow and suffering, and that we're on this wheel of samsara. And like I said, these things go into great detail, and they're pretty massive in terms of how they connect to all the other Buddhist teachings. But just very, very briefly, I'll just give you the rundown of this. The 12 links of dependent arising, sometimes known as dependent origination: ignorance, karmic formations, consciousness, name and form, 6 senses, contact, feeling, craving, grasping, becoming, birth, aging, and death. And the next thing that I want to talk about is the evil karmas, basically the things that we have to try to avoid doing. And I guess sometimes they're called the 10 non-virtuous actions, or these are the things that also cause a lot of bad karma, and you get the results of these things. So these are the things that we try to avoid. And it's a bigger expansion of the 5 precepts. So the 5 precepts are in here, followed by other things: killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct, and that's part of bodily actions. In terms of the speech, there's lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, and idle gossip. And in the mind, it is covetousness, ill will, and wrong views. So those are the 10 non-virtuous actions, or the 10 unwholesome karmas, if you will. Now, the 3 jewels of refuge. Another thing that we do in Buddhism is that eventually you get to the point where you want to take refuge, and when you become a Buddhist and you want to officially become a Buddhist, you take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. We all know what the Buddha, he's the teacher, the one that set the wheel of Dharma for us and to basically show us the way. The Dharma, of course, is the teachings of the Buddha, and the Sangha is the Buddhist community. So, these are sort of very, very brief overview of some of the essential teachings, and I will hopefully try to get to these things in greater detail in future videos. I've been not really doing too many videos for past couple of days or something, and not that I need to do one every day, but I have a lot of ideas going on in my mind, and trying to find time in my own personal life to do these. So, thank you for watching, and please join me, please subscribe. I plan on doing more videos. I plan on making them better, and also trying to keep them as simple as I possibly can, but eventually going into more details about these things. So anyway, I do appreciate everyone who has watched these videos, and I hope that I've helped in some way. Namaste. May all beings be well and happy. May all beings be free of suffering. Peace and love to you and your family. And then please join me next time. Peace.